and so forth, we want to be good hosts. And in order to do that, we need to know that people are doing ceremony and so forth on our land.
Absolutely.
So as to be good hosts, you know, that's it's proper protocol, and it's a good thing. So that's why I really thank you.
Thank you.
So, and where did you go to school?
I grew up, I started in Los Angeles, right across the river from what we called Japantown, but now Little Tokyo. So we could walk, and we used to eat right there on First Street. I remember that as a child vividly when I was 3, 4, 5. But then we moved out to the suburbs, and it was like we were like the blockbusters. I don't know if they're Africans for like 20 miles around us. It was very strange. So I went to these all-white schools in an all-European neighborhood. So I went through La Sierra, and then I went to Loma Linda University, the La Sierra campus. It was right down the street from my house. Then I went to USC. Then I was out working 20 years as a journalist. And then when I got married, my wife was already here at UCSB, so then I came up here and joined her in 1995. And then I got a master's in education and started teaching here in the school district, first at Dos Pueblos and now at Santa Barbara High School.
Oh, okay. And so were you politically active in college?
Oh, I joined the party in 1990. And since being here, we started 2 political prisoner support groups, one for Richard Williams and then one for Mumia Abu-Jamal.
Okay.
And we also started the Yuri Kochiyama Fund for Political Prisoners to honor Yuri Kochiyama, who's still alive and well, even though she's been reported dead a couple of times, living in Berkeley now. She was a student of Malcolm X's, and she's very famous for the photo when he died. She's cradling his head, and nobody knows who that little Japanese woman is. And she's probably one of the foremost supporters for political prisoners globally, but especially here in the U.S. And so my wife wrote a biography on her, and all the proceeds from the biography go to fund political prisoners, commissary, family visitation, things like that. So I'm the de facto treasurer trying to keep that money flowing. We've done some lightweight fundraisers, and of course we all that belong to it up and down the coast of California put in our own funds.
Well, that's great. So can you talk about the ideology behind the All-African Revolutionary Party?
Absolutely. We call ourselves Nkrumah's Terrorist after Dr. Kwame Nkrumah and Ahmed Sekou Touré, the first president of a liberated Ghana and the first president of a liberated Guinea, respectively. We believe these gentlemen's lives, their writings, their activities really exemplify the revolutionary African personality. So we call ourselves Nkrumah's Terrorist after them. So Pan-Africanism is our goal, our ideology. We name after them because of their beautiful lives. Our only goal is to really unify all of Africa and Africans globally in a liberated zone that we believe is the entire continent. And we believe the only proper social system would be one where we're all working together and we all take from that. Some people call it socialism. We have, Uhuru. We have many other names on the continent for it, but I think Europeans would call it socialism. And we say, because that is our history. I mean, capitalism that doesn't work for us. Feudalism and slavery, tried that, didn't work for everybody, only a few at the top. So we need something that's going to support all of us.
Right, especially the effects of capitalization, or the resources and stuff being robbed from that continent.
Colonialism did a job on us the same way it did here on your continent. And it really hasn't stopped. We have new fancy names like imperialism, a higher level, or people say globalization from above. But it's always that pyramid shape with a tiny group at the top running off of everyone else. They're parasites. Why do we look up to them? Because at the top of the pyramid, or because of propaganda? We think we, the working class, we create everything. Why don't we control it?
Exactly.
I mean, what institution do we control? Thank goodness for public TV, public access, where we can actually have our own programming and get out our views. You're not going to see this conversation on CNN, ever.
In just the idea of, Africa being such a rich continent with all the resources that are there, and also just the people of that continent being some of the poorest in the world. Now,
you know, we see it locally. If you go to Mexico, almost all the riches that we call Mexican come from one state, the southern state, the most southernmost state. And it's interesting, the people in the south of Mexico are the poorest. And I think that's why you see the most revolutionary people coming from Oaxaca, Chiapas, Guerrero, the south, where the riches are, but they don't benefit.
right.
The world goes to Africa because it has everything you want. You have a cell phone, you got cobalt. You know, you want diamonds, you want gold, you want oil, you want all these wonderful minerals that keep capitalism churning along. But what do you do to get it? You don't negotiate, you steal. And so that's a real problem to see the rich continent so far as the wealth there, but then all these poor people where only 1/3 of the entire continent has easy access to clean water.
Yeah.
That's nuts. And we can't stand for that.
And the people here within that are living in the United States, you know, the idea about education and about being really held down as far as a culture, that, you know, the government really does not want any progression there, does not want educated people, does not want healthy people.
I think that's, once again, that just shows us that as the working class, we do not have control of all the institutions that run our lives. Education's one, healthcare is one. The courts, we were talking about that before
Yes.
we came on. I mean, we don't even control our own religion. That's
Exactly.
crazy.
Well, I mean, just the idea that as Native people, we didn't have freedom of religion. We just got this back in the 70s. That is
Scary.
just, that's crazy. That's crazy that we have not even had the ability to vote until recently.
In
That's-
1965, Africans got the guaranteed right to vote. Women, 1920. People make it sound like this a long time ago. I know people born in 1920. And they were like, I'm so glad that my grandmother or my mother went through that struggle so I could just go to the poll.
Uh-huh.
That's nuts.
Yeah. So, can you comment about, you know, how do you feel that since the civil rights movement that we are progressing, and to what degree?
That's an excellent question, because I know in my community we always talk about the civil rights, and you read those collegiate books. They say the good civil rights movement, the bad civil rights movement, and they're talking about moving from civil rights to black power.
Right.
To me, that is mental, social, a real community growth. That shows expansion. And then we move from black power to Pan-Africanism. To me, once again, we grew. But then you hear people that pine for the good old days of marching with Dr. King. Those days are done. They did their part. They moved us to a level, and then we continued on, and then we've continued on. And I don't know what the next part is going to be, but for right now, that Pan-African section is most salient, most powerful. We've got to leave that alone. Let the civil rights die so that the civil rights can live, is the way I look at it. We've got to move on. And I think because every time we take that next leap, ideologically, philosophically, we lose people. Because this is the old saying, good boxing's like good jazz. The better it is, the fewer people like it. I think it's the same way ideologically. When you become more sound, when you become more active, you lose people. They want to sit in the armchair and still call themselves a revolutionary. It doesn't work that way. It's just not reality. You have to get up and do something.
Right. The fight's not over.
No, it's not. And I think it may be more subtle in the way it's brought to us. I mean, we even have someone that looks like us as the president.
Yeah, that was going to be one of the questions that I did have. Like, how do you feel about? We've had the first black president, and people said that this would never happen. So it's happened, and how do you feel about how the government is going as of now?
It's hard for me to really see a difference because
Yeah.
he's such a hardcore Democrat. And because he's coming out of that, he's always been loyal to that party. I just can't see him as much different. It's packaging. I mean, we can change this background, but it's
Yes.
still the same building, it's still the same room. I mean,
Yes.
if you want something different, you may have to tear down the building and build a new